Bison raised their rates at the beginning of the year for owner-operators and for company drivers. And I got to tell you, it has been so successful that they wanted to let you know exactly how much their drivers are making. That's right, they've significantly increased the base rates for their teams. So owner-operator teams can earn up to $360,000 per year. That's right, you heard me say that right, $360,000 per year. Company team drivers can earn up to $120,000 per year per driver. That's right, per driver. That's some big numbers, right? They have a wide variety of Canada-only dedicated team positions available for folks to choose from, and Bison has a steady freight to keep the teams moving. So if you want to significantly increase your base rates, then you want to make sure that you sign up for that. Now, Bison has also increased the base rates for owner-operators. Owner-operators running Canada-only can earn up to $185,000 per year. They have a wide variety of Canada-only positions for owner-operators to choose from, and Bison has a steady freight to keep the owner-operators moving. So where can you learn more about all of these things? I mean, $360,000 for owner-operator teams, $120,000 for company driver teams, and owner-operators running by themselves can earn $185,000 per year. Canada only, folks, that is incredible. Well, the best place to go is to go to bisondriving.com. And while you're there, while you're talking to the team, you let them know that you heard about it from the Uphill podcast. Hey, good luck there. You're going to make some great money working for one of the safest fleets in North America. All right, so let's get into what we're going to be talking today. We've got some women that I was very, very impressed with when I was attending the Bridging the Barriers event, and I wanted to showcase them here because they really came through, their presentations came through with some real true grit. One of them was Deborah Fraser. She's now with GFL Transport. She is in charge of the operations over there, and had an amazing presentation about her career and how she got through some of that information. And then we had Carrie Wierachowski, who's the Director of Inspections Program with the CVSA, and she talked about her career coming up and how she was not exactly wanted by the men in the industry. And then we have Laura Muir, and Laura won the Mentor Award this year, and I had a chance to interview her about her award and what she was doing. So we're going to showcase some of the presentations from those three women today because I thought they were really instrumental. So if you're a woman in the industry, please listen to this. This is something that's hopefully going to inspire you to go a little further into your career. Let's start off with Deborah Fraser. She's
Good morning, everyone. Again, Deborah Fraser. I'm with GFL. So this is not for distraction purposes. This is just because I am one voice of GFL. So behind me, I've got the support of our women and men, sort of behind me, cheering me along. So I want to give you guys a little bit of a journey map from where I'm coming from. So 51 in November. Woohoo! I have been doing, thank you, I've been doing safety for about 28 and a half years. Started with legal department, ended up in construction, and then I got scouted by GFL January 4th, 2014. And I showed up for an interview. Safety's in the brains. I've got construction mentality for safety, and I'm ready to show my stuff. And I show up for the interview, and there's nobody there from HR, because there just wasn't. So this gentleman, Kevin Jennings, steps up, and he says, sorry, the HR folks are not here, so I'm going to interview you. Okay, I don't know, I think he's a boss, right? So 2.5 hours, he's questioning about CVORs. He's questioning me about inspections. Do I know this? Do I not know that? Sure, we're good. He says, okay, Deb, let's go for a walk into the parking lot, into the work area, where it was shared between some liquid divisions transfers and solid waste. So we head out into the parking lot, and I look over at Kevin, and I look down at him, and I look down at me, and I said, Kev, aren't we going to put some safety boots on before we go in there? And he said, that'll be for you to decide, because you'll be the boss. And I said, well, who are you? He says, well, I'm hiring you for my boss. I'm like, wait, what? Kevin Jennings and I have been working together for just about 10 years, just together, and he's been here, 25 years, right? So very proud to be a part of GFL. like I said, when I came in, and as a woman, in the safety world, we all know the habits. My father was the owner of Hempstead Oil Drilling in Edmonton, Alberta, and my father's first aid kit was duct tape or electrical tape. That was his first aid kit. So that's the mentality that I understood coming into trying to push safety into an environment where it was all men, especially me being half Jamaican, half Indian. My family, my mom is about this tall, you know, so, and people aren't quite sure when they look at me, right? They kind of think, well, I'm not sure. Well, I'll let you think whatever you want as long as you get the job done. I'll just share a quick story with you. When we talk, some of the struggles I listen to the women talk about, coming into GFL. So there I am, coming to GFL, I'm female. Everyone's looking at me like, what is this woman gonna tell us about our trucks? She doesn't know anything about it, same story. Well, we had a lot of acquisitions. When I started, I think I was employee 462. We are 22,000 wide now. There was a time that I was responsible coast to coast in Canada for all solid waste, liquid, and infrastructure. And then as we started growing, that was a little too much to handle, we started breaking down. But our CEO, Patrick DeVigi, didn't stop buying stuff, which I'm sure most of you know. GFL buys anything that moves. So one of our acquisitions, old school mentality guy, old school guys, I showed up a couple times with Kevin and said, okay guys, I want to check the trucks, I want to talk to the employees, I want to see who knows what, I want to see compliance. And they just do this and do this. We walk out the door, and before I get out the door, they did this. No problem. So struggle with this gentleman, and then one morning I had an idea. The location started at 5:30 in the morning. At that time I had about, nationally, I had about 18 people working for me. I called everybody in coast to coast, rolled up in the vehicles, waited on the side of the road, everybody turned their beacons on, and we waited. And then as the trucks were coming out, we rolled in one by one into this gentleman's location, like, I think we were called a SWAT team. And we showed up, and by the time we got to the front door, the previous owner walked out with his staff, and he's like, "Deborah, what's happening? What's going on?" I said, "Nothing, we just came for a visit." He's like, "With the whole team?" We did. We spent the whole day with them, again, enforcing. That was the last time that gentleman has ever pushed me, and he's now become one of my greatest mentors. A couple days after that, we had a national meeting with Patrick DeVigi and all of our national folks, and he walked in at the end of the boardroom. He was 45 minutes late. He walks in and says, "Deborah, I want to ask you a question." He says, "Did you show up with the SWAT team at such and such location and shut everything down?" No, I'm not lying. I was terrified, right? Because I'm in front of everybody. And my current boss, my boss at the time was COO, and he just shrugged me. He says, "Tell him." I said, I did. And then I was waiting, like, get up to get fired, because if anybody knows Mr. DeVigi, he's got no problem saying what he feels. And he didn't. And he said, "Do me a favor, keep doing what you're doing until I tell you to stop." I was like, what? And that's what I've been doing up until 4 months ago. 4 months ago, I was getting into a struggle with some of the new acquisition and American partners we were dealing with, struggling not about power, but about enforcement into Canadian regulations, what we had to do. And I felt a lot of times the people in the US didn't understand what we were doing, so I was struggling. And I was prepared to leave after 28 and a half years and say, you know what, I'm gonna get a job at Walmart. I'm gonna be the person that just goes, hello, and that would be it. Right? I was fed up. And fed up with the struggle of going to another mail company and doing this all over again. And I'm so blessed. The rumor got around with some of our very senior people at GFL, men, who approached me and said, "There's a rumor that you think you're leaving?" Nope. And they said, "Hang on, give us a couple months. We're going to find another place for you in this company." And I'm like, okay, sure, I don't believe you. Lies. These guys, I was wrong. These gentlemen came back to me. I had 2 different job offers. I'm now the Director of Operations for Solid Waste Canada. I'm the ambassador for Women in Waste, woohoo, and Diversity and Culture. Thank you. Thank you. And if you haven't noticed by the pictures and the things that I've said, my excitement and my energy, I am so happy to be a part of this. The fact that Women in Trucking, Shelley and Sam and Heather Roper brought us to be a part of this organization and build the bridges. We are going to build bridges, because if you haven't noticed, I've got a big voice, I'm very big excited, and I expect to see things get done. So I'm not that person that shows up and says, okay, thanks very much, we'll see you next week. Before I leave today, I want to know what changes. And I've already met a few of our wonderful partners that are here, people that we're going to start working with in the near future. I'm very proud and very excited. Women in Waste. Thank you.
Is the director of the inspections program for CVSA. Started as a Ministry of Transportation officer and did not know a lot about the inspection process until she started, tried to get some help, and ended up being in charge of many of the men who frowned on her in the beginning. Very inspirational story.
I would have said, you're crazy, you're nuts, never going to happen. So I know that you never know where life's going to take you. Okay, I'm going to start on my next slide back in 1987, and I can honestly tell you in 1987 when I started working for the government of Ontario, I never, in my wildest dreams, thought I'd be standing here. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would inspect trucks, to be honest, when I started at the government, but that's where it took me. The other thing that I've learned is take a chance, because you're going to be. So I heard a lot of women working in the workplace. I heard you guys say you got to work twice as hard to get where you're going. That's not a whole lot different than what I had to say to a few bosses, and I will tell you those stories along my way. The other thing is, I can tell you that I never stopped learning, and I had to keep learning. And I said it to my boss, I will be twice as good at this job than that guy sitting next to me. And it wasn't a competition, I just felt like that's what I had to do. So learning and being good at my job, and I never wanted a job that guy was better at than me. So it was like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to inspect trucks and I'm going to do it as good as the other guys in my detachment. That's just what I'm going to do. And that's what I tried to do. And most of all, when obstacles get in your way, learn from them and move past them. Because we all have them. I don't care who you are. When you're in the workplace and you're working and you're trying to get ahead or you're trying to just do a good job, obstacles get in your way. And they get frustrating. Sometimes it's people. And sometimes you have to learn how to deal with those people. And once you learn how to deal with those people, now you know how to deal with those kind of people. And you move on and you meet another person. That's a trial, it's a tribulation, but you figure out how to deal with those people and you move past it. So I started as a secretary at the Ministry of Transportation in 1987, and I was 10. So I moved there. I wanted to move to Kitchener. I lived in Strathroy, Ontario, if you know where that was, and I was dying to go to the big city. So I went and I took a contract as a secretary. I was very insecure back then, and I thought, I can type, I can do that. I just need to get a job so I can move to the city. I did. Then I got a job as an administrative assistant 9 months after that. And I did that for 3 years. And as I sat in the Kitchener office, I was like, these guys kept coming and going out of the office every day. They'd get in their little patrol cars, and back then it had a little bubble light on the top, and they were wearing brown uniforms, and I was like, I have no idea what those guys do, but it kind of looks cool, and they get out of the office all the time. So I asked, can I just go on a ride along with them and see? I was 19 years old at the time. I was like 18 when I started at the government. So out I went, and they're under there shoving, they thought it was like, I don't know, field day with their kid. They were like shoving me under the truck, and they're like, hey, see that push rod there? And I'm like, I have no idea what these guys are talking about, but I'll learn. And I said, yeah. So I got along real well with those guys in the detachment because I was the clerk. I used to answer questions if industry called in and they wanted to know about weights and dimensions or CVOR or hours of service. I knew it all in my head. I just didn't know how to apply it. That was my job, answering questions on the phone. Back when there was push dials on the phone. There was none of this crazy stuff now. So then I thought, you know what? A job came open at Putnam Scales, and anybody that drives in Ontario knows where the Putnam Scales are. So you're all nodding, oh God, that's where she worked, yep. So I applied. And I will be honest with you, when I tell people, did I get the job because I was a woman? I might have. I don't know the answer to that question. There were 650 people that applied for that job. There was one job and I got it. I was 20 years old. I worked at the government. Did they need females in the job? Probably, because I was the 5th one in the entire province that had ever been female getting that job. So whether I got it because I'm female or not, I don't know. But if I did, I was going to prove that they made the right choice. So off I went to Putnam. I'm 20 years old. Who do I get? A 54-year-old inspector who doesn't want to train me. And he goes, I walked in, and this was my experience. I walk in, and he goes, nobody here wants to train you. The only reason they hired you is because you can wear a skirt. And I went, oh boy, this is going to be rough. And it was rough. I will not lie. I would go to work and he'd go, I'm going to go in and take a nap. You don't pull any trucks over. If something happens to you, it's going to be my fault. How do I deal with that? Obstacle number one. How am I going to deal with that? This man is training me and he doesn't want to. So what do? I say nothing. And I just take it all in. And then I start finding people that want to help me. One of the people that helped me was my training officer for how to do a CBSA inspection. I tried so hard at that course. They sent me 2 weeks after I started. I was so nervous, and I will tell industry this when I teach them today. I thought it was tin on rubber. I thought the fifth wheel was a spare tire, and I'm not kidding. I'm like, I have no idea how I'm gonna pass this course. So every night I would go out there with my instructor and I go, you gotta take me through this truck. You gotta take me through this truck. I have to understand this. And I succeeded. Then those people were the people that helped me. And then those people in between 90 and 96, they were the ones that told me, you need to start teaching basic training. So then all of a sudden, my next obstacle, I started teaching basic training and CDSA inspections, and all the people that I worked with, they now knew that I could actually do it. But then I had students, most of them male. I had one get up and walk out every single time I taught, and he would leave. And so then my co-trainer would go looking for him, and he goes, I'm not taking anything she has. She doesn't know what she's doing. That hurts my feelings, to be honest. And it's like, wow, I really need to overcome this somehow. So you just keep going, and you just keep striving. So then I started to do all of the CDSA inspections, and then I transferred to Putnam, or out of Putnam to the Waterloo District, and I patrolled there for 16 years. And when I went there, my boss said to me, I didn't want them to transfer you back here. Women don't belong on patrol. You should have stayed at Putnam. It's safer for you. And I said, okay, I get it. And he goes, there's women in this job that shouldn't be here. I said, I don't disagree with that statement, but there's men in this job that shouldn't be here too. So, again, out I went. I patrolled with everybody, and eventually, one by one, working with all the guys that I worked with, because they were all guys. There was no other females in my detachment, not for a long, long time. So I just became one of the guys, for lack of better words. And they all respected me, and they all, to this day, are some of my best friends, even though I don't work there anymore. So then I went off to St. Catharines to head office. I can't tell you it was probably the best decision of my life, because I left the road, and then my job became very desk-like, and I did a lot of training, and I wrote a lot of policies, and I did a lot of desk work, but my favorite thing was still to go out on the road. I can remember when I first went out on the road on patrol. At Putnam, it was a little different. It is a safe space. I would go out on patrol, and I didn't only get it from the guys that I worked with, I got it from truck drivers. I'd pull over a truck driver, and there I am standing on the road, and I'm like, what, 30 years old? And I can tell you, I've told this to industry 100 times. You stop a truck driver, and he looks at me, and I go, I'm going to do a level 1 inspection on your truck. And he goes, seriously? And I go, seriously? And then he goes, are you a mechanic? And I go, no. Are you? And he goes, no. I said, okay, then when I'm done, whatever I find, I will show you, and you should have found when you did your trip inspection this morning. And I was the first one to take my books onto the back of the trunk of the car, open up the regulations, open up the out of service, and explain to the driver exactly why he was being placed out of service or what his violations were. And when I say to industry now, ask the inspector, ask them, like, why, if you don't understand why you're getting a ticket or why you're getting placed out of service, ask the question. And they're like, are you crazy? And I go, well, they ask me all the time, and they go, yeah, you're different. And I only wish that every inspector was like that, because I'll get to my role now, but my role now is just trying to make sure people do stuff right. So you'll see there the picture of me at Putnam. Like, I loved inspecting trucks, loved it, loved every piece of it. And so when I went into St. Catharines, I started to do a whole lot of training for all the inspectors. I did do industry presentations. I'm far more comfortable up here talking about the 10 top violations and how to get out of service conditions than telling you about this story. But nonetheless, that's what I started to do. And then I changed into the job of head of enforcement in 2014. And when I did that, I became a member of the National Dangerous Goods Working Group. I was also on the Education Quality Assurance team for the country for training. So I would meet up with all the people in the rest of the provinces so that we could make sure we were doing things as uniformly as we could. So that opened up a bunch of doors for me. And then I also started, just before I quit the government, the Level 6 program for radioactive materials. because there was a repatriation project that was going on in the Obama administration where all the spent fuel had to go from the Canadian nuclear laboratories back down to the US. So that was a huge endeavor, and I finished it, and then I quit. So where did I go? Well, I have to start back in 2001 to explain to you where I went. And I dug through, I can't tell you how many pictures to find pictures to throw on these slides. There I am, I'm only like 21 years old at that time. So I went to what CVSA calls the North American Inspectors Championship. And if anybody in here has ever been to the truck driving championships in Ontario, we used to do it conjointly with them. And we would have an inspectors competition, 10 inspectors would compete, and the winner of that would go to the United States and compete against other inspectors. So I did that, and my boss, who told me women didn't belong here, 5 years later, forced me to go and compete because he wanted me to go and he said I could win. And that was Hans Johns. So I'm sure some of you in here know that man because he's been around since paint. So, you know, like Hans Johns and I became the best of friends, but again, I had to prove it to the old German that I could do the job first. So he told me to go there and compete, and I didn't want to, but I did. And then I won. And then I went to the North American Inspectors Championship. I can tell you, when I went there, I honestly didn't care. It was 54 men and me, and I was like, there's no chance. And so I just went down, and I had the time of my life. I had a bunch of fun. We obviously took some training, and I ended up winning. So I'm the only woman that's ever won that inspector's competition. We have it every year. But because I won that inspector's competition in '01, I got a lot of different interesting experiences. I found these pictures, I kind of forgot all about it, but Road Check, they had the introduction of Road Check, the media release at the Windsor border. They asked me to go down there and do an inspection for them. I did. That's the federal government administrator at the time. Somebody took a picture of me checking the truck, so I thought, you know, I'd forgotten I even got to do that. That led to something else. So my current boss right now, he used to work for Alberta the Alberta Transportation. He quit his job and went to CVSA back in 2002. They needed a new co-chair for Canada for the event because we make sure that everything is comparable between Canada and the US as far as hours of service and everything like that. So they asked me to take on that co-chair role in 2003. So that's 2003. Then in 2007, the president of CVSA at the time came up to me and he said, we want you to chair a committee. That's Rolf Vanderswag sitting next to me, if any of you know him. He was my secretary for a long time. But in 2007, they said, we want you to take a standing committee. Which one do you want? I said, vehicle. Everything to do with vehicle has always been my thing. So I take vehicle in 2007. What I did not know in 2007, but I know today, because they came and told me, I walked into that room in 2007, I sat down, and the current vice chair and the secretary both leaned over to me, and they said, we understand you're taking over this committee in the next meeting. I said, that's the plan. And they both looked at me and said, we don't want to be your vice chair, and we don't want to be your secretary. And I went, okay. Don't know why. Again, hurt feelings, won't lie. I was just like, okay, that's great. That's fantastic. So I'm like, now I've got to find a vice chair, a secretary. And what I did not know, all the brake manufacturers, there were 6 of them. You name the brake manufacturer, they used to sit in vehicle committee across the wall. I didn't sit in vehicle committee because my region used to send me to driver traffic all the time because nobody in Region 5 understood hours of service, so they would send me there, which was fine. So I didn't know the players in vehicle. So I sat there, and those guys never came back to another meeting. But I didn't know who they were because I had never met them. So they just didn't come back. About 3 years later, after I was running the committee, because I ran the vehicle committee from 2007 to 2016, about 3 years after they came back and they sat in the back of one of the vehicle committee meetings. And one of them came up to me and said, Carrie, we owe you an apology. And I said, for what? I didn't even know them at this point. And I said, what are you apologizing for? And they said, well, when they appointed you the chairman of the vehicle committee, for lack of better words, it was an old boys club. It still is. I mean, I'm telling you, there's like 80 people in the room, and at best there's maybe 10 females if we're lucky, maybe. Never been another female on the voting members of the committee yet. And I said, what are you sorry for? And they go, well, we saw them appoint you, and they thought they have no idea what they're doing anymore. This alliance is going to crap, and we left. And then we slowly started to hear things, and so we came back to see for ourselves. And those brake manufacturers are some of the best friends I have, and they will answer me day or night, whatever, emails, phone calls, whatever. So another obstacle that I never even knew that I had, to be honest, but I gave them all the credit in the world for coming back and telling me what they thought, and then I take that in, because then I think, okay, every time I go into a new crowd, every time I go into an industry course that I'm teaching and the majority of the people in there don't know who I am, I get that feeling all over again. It's like I feel like I'm 20 years old again, and I'm standing up here and I got to convince everybody in the room that I know my job. And I doubt that will ever completely end for me, to be honest. But I chaired that until 2007, and then in 2016, I resigned from the vehicle committee because I wanted to run for region president. CVSA is split into 5 regions, and Canada is region 5. So I did run for president, and I was elected president. I tell you, if I'd have stayed in the government another 5 years, I probably the following year would have run for secretary and then run to be president of CVSA. CVSA to me is like the pinnacle of bringing industry and enforcement together in one room. And it just, I don't know, for me, that association and that alliance made my job so much more interesting. For me, as an enforcement officer, it's something when you get a driver from Montana and he's telling you something and you're like, well, I don't know whether it's true. And you can call a friend in Montana and ask the question. It's of huge value. And similarly, when I used to get phone calls from people that had an Ontario driver down south and they don't understand his driver's license, it's something easy for us in Ontario to distinguish. It's not so easy for a guy from Texas to make sure that this guy's got the right class of license. So a simple phone call goes a long way. So those were the things that I wanted to get involved with. So after the Region 5, before I left the government, I did get an Exemplary Service Medal Award, and I got this Queen's Jubilee Award. So those are important to me too. They didn't have to give me those, so I'm only presuming that I was doing a good job in order to get those. So I did get those 2 awards before I left the government, and then while I was working in the government, every single year, the CVSA gives out 3 presidential awards to people that they think that have a contribution to the CVSA Alliance. So I got the presidential award from David Palmer from Texas back in, I think it was like 2014 or something like that. So those were the things that happened to me when I worked for the government. Then in 2016, the director of roadside inspections job came open in CVSA. I won't lie, it was the hardest decision I ever made in my life. I did not retire from the government. I had been there almost 31 years, and I left that career behind. I didn't retire, I did not get my pension, lots of guys in the US, they gotta work like 25 years, 25 and out. That is not how the Ontario government works. I would have retired from the Ontario government next year. I would have finally made it to my factor and got out after 36 years, but I left. It was a tough call. It was a tough call for 2 reasons. One, by the time I left the government, I had the respect of all those inspectors in Ontario. I really did. They were like my kids, and I felt like I was leaving them behind, because day or night, they would email me a question, they would want something at roadside, they would need to know something, and I was there. And I knew I was bailing on them. I knew it, right? So it was tough. The other thing, I won't lie, losing a lot of money is tough. However, where I got to in my mind was that job was coming out in 2017. If I don't try and I don't take it, it might not be there in 2025 when I'm ready to quit my job and go to CVSA. So I applied for the job and I got the job. And then as of last year, because my world got so big, and it did, when I started at CVSA, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff for industry. And I can tell you when I started at CVSA, the one thing that made me want to quit my job and go there was I did all the provincial training for inspectors in Ontario. But it was insular. I was training inspectors in Ontario. How do I make it bigger? How do I do more? How do I do more? I go to a North American alliance and I start building out training packages and stuff for all the inspectors in the United States, Canada, and Mexico, all of them. And then I can reach more industry, because I knew a lot of industry in Ontario. I didn't know a whole lot of industry outside of Ontario. So how do I make my world bigger and help more people. That was one of the biggest driving factors as to why I left. But then I did develop an industry course, and I did start doing all that, and my world is so big now, and all the autonomous vehicle stuff became part of my problem. We ended up hiring 2 people last year, so I was promoted to Director of Inspection Programs, which includes roadside and all the autonomous vehicle stuff, and the Level 8 program and everything else that we're doing within the confines of CVSA. So these are some of the things that I am responsible for. Every inspection bulletin on our website I do, all the operational policies I write, the North American Standard out of service criteria that you see there that comes out every April, that is my job to update it and do the ballot for our members to vote on it. Those are my programs. These are the programs that I'm the staff liaison for. You can see most of them are vehicle related. I pick the ones that I like the best, and they're all vehicle related to some way, shape, or form. So I told you that story about the brake manufacturers. Well, now all the brake manufacturers are actually a council under CVSA as of a year and a half ago. They came to us and said, we need a home. CVSA seems like the place that we want to be, and I am their staff liaison. So I learn a lot from them every day. I do not build brakes. I am not an engineer. Half the time they're talking, I really don't know what they're talking about when they're talking about burnishing and all this other kind of stuff. But the longer I listen, the more I learn. And I say it to industry all the time when I'm teaching them, knowledge is power, and it's no different for me. The more I know, the better I am at my job, right? You don't need to know it all, but a lot of times it's just who you know. It's who you know. It's like if Joanne calls me, I might not know the answer, but I probably know who does. So I can reach out to whoever and get her the answer, and I'm like a rock star and I didn't know anything, right? So that's what networking is all about, and that's the part of my job that I loved the most. And I loved it when I worked in Ontario. I can tell you, if I could have done my job and never wrote a ticket, I'd have been a happier person, honestly. If your truck was a piece of crap and I had to take you off the road, I had no problem doing that. But going further and writing all the tickets and stuff, I could have taken a leave that. I just wanted to educate people.
And she was there. We had a good conversation as I was drawing her character, the caricature in classics, and she did not know she was about to win. They award a mentor award every year, and this one was well deserved. And she was so surprised to win. It was fun. But I did have a chance to sit down and chat with her about winning the award.
Last night when I was drawing you, I was drawing royalty.
I'm not.
I would have, maybe taken an extra second or two. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You didn't know anything about it?
I didn't know anything about it. Everybody else knew, and it was a complete surprise, but it's God's grace.
Yeah. So,
It's okay.
so
It's okay.
what do you even know what you did to be the mentor of the year? You must have done something.
I don't know. It's just the grace of God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks. So
I think, I try to help the kids. I try to bring our NGOs together, and I really see Shelley trying to do that. She works hard, by the way, but trying to build co-relationships in our industry, which don't always work, but I try to bring that synergy. Boy, that's really pissing me off that people are walking through the shop, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shit.
Okay, take it out. It happens daily.
No.
You can't see a guy 6 foot tall on the camera.
No, I guess not.
But anyway, back to you. Back to the important stuff.
Me?
So what did your boss know? Because it sounds like you guys are really friends.
Apparently, Brenda, who's our director of marketing, and my best friend knew, and my boss knew. So that's Dave Cox,
Right.
and president of Polaris, and my whole circle knew, and it's like the world's best kept secret.
Yeah.
But I thought it odd when my husband said, "Take a handkerchief with you," and I was like,
"Oh, there's a sign. You can talk to him today."
yes. So I'm sure he'll be happy, and I just live life with the mindset of if I can go home and tell a good tale to my kids, I'm very happy. And if I could change somebody's life with whatever time God's given me on this earth, I'm very happy with that.
Well, it looks like they've changed your life today, but you've obviously changed some people's lives in the past. So congratulations to you.
Thank you
That's so
very,
awesome.
very much.
Congratulations.
Oh God, Brucey, give me a hug.
Well, you know what?
They're located in Toronto, Ontario, but don't have to go to there. I mean, after all, who can find Toronto? What you do want to do is give them a call to 1-800-204-3986. Have them come to you. That's right, they come to your place of business, come to your home, wherever you'd like to meet with them. They can schedule the appointment, and they have tax consultants all throughout Ontario that can really help you get money in your pocket. Because no operators and truck drivers, you know what, you're on the road a lot. You need someone to really help you with this. They've been around for a long time, so you can find all about them at rs2000tax.com, or like I say, you can always give them a call at 1-800-304-3986. Make sure you tell them that the Red Bell Podcast sent you, and you will not be disappointed. All right, so this is Inspirational Women. Hopefully, if you're in the industry, you know that you're not the only one that's got tough times. We're not going to have tough times. Let's help the guy get through the industry. We need more people in it. We need good people. We don't care about your gender. We don't care about your culture. We just need good people in our industry. That's what we're trying to do. So, some very inspirational messages there. Keep going if you can. And if you don't follow us, let's just do that on our social, Instagram, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, and you can subscribe to us through your favorite podcast platform. And by the way, don't forget to check out our live programming on Red Bell Radio. That's right, redbell.com/Red Bell Radio. Or go to redbellradio.com and you can learn all about us there. All right, talk to you later, my friends. Be good out